Welcome to another edition of Daily Airline News focusing on the search for MH370. I'm Jeffrey Thomas, and I'm delighted to say joined by my co-host Blaine Gibson. Good afternoon, Blaine.
Good afternoon, Jeffrey.
And so today, viewers, we're going to be focusing on some of the crazy theories and some of the not so crazy theories surrounding MH370 at your request. And we're going to start off with one that's a very serious theory. In fact, it's not a theory, it's a fact. And that's a question which was raised by Jen Tanaka 4069. Blaine, he asks, or she asks, there was a high profile and suspicious death connected to the investigation of Malaysian Airlines flight MH370. Who was killed? Over to you, Blaine.
Well, that is a very good question. I know the man who was killed. He was the honorary Malaysian consul in Madagascar, in Antananarivo. I knew him personally. I was working with him to help collect and retrieve and deliver 370 debris. And I would like to first give the background on this and say that when it comes to conspiracies, we know that conspiracies exist. There are conspiracy theories that are legitimate, are based on evidence. Sometimes they're conspiracies to commit, and sometimes they're conspiracies to cover up. And the definition of a conspiracy is simply when two people join together and agree to break the law and act upon it, two or more people. So anything other than an accident or a purely solo act could very well be a conspiracy. So there's the difference between legitimate ones that are worth looking into, and those with Malaysia 370 are conspiracies to cover up, and then the wild, crazy ones to debunk. So let me tell you about Zahid Raza. He was the honorary Malaysian consul in Madagascar, and he was involved very early on with Malaysia 370 because when the flapper was found in La Réunion, those islands were in his jurisdiction. So he went there. So he knew a lot about it. And I was in Madagascar in June of 2016 and found and collected from local people about 8 pieces of debris. 6 of them I handed in to the Madagascar authorities, and they were very receptive and wanted to immediately set up a handover to Malaysia with a ceremony of these pieces of debris. But the higher ups at the Ministry of Transport canceled the trip of the Annex 13 investigator, the engineer who wanted and was ready to go. And so the debris sat there for 6 months, undelivered, uninvestigated, well kept in Madagascar, but collecting dust. And finally, in December, the 370 families decided, at my encouragement, to make a trip to Madagascar to raise awareness and offer a reward for local people to be on the lookout for debris. And at the same time, they said to the Ministry of Transport, let us pick up these 6 pieces of debris. Well, the higher up bean counters in the ministry didn't want to be embarrassed by having the families have to go over and get the debris themselves. So they set the investigator, the engineer over, a very good man, very dedicated. And they did the debris awareness efforts, and I've told you about that. They went on the radio. And we also started into discussions about how to handle the delivery of debris, whereby debris would be handed over to Madagascar authorities by local people and then transferred to Malaysia officially with a proper chain of custody so that it didn't require that an engineer from Malaysia flew over there to pick it up. That was very expensive. So, what was set up between the two governments, Madagascar and Malaysia, was a protocol whereby debris would be handed into Madagascar officials and then delivered to the honorary Malaysian consul Zahid Raza, who would arrange delivery to Malaysia by courier for investigation. And so we had a couple pieces of debris that we were holding on to until that protocol was in place and then to be handed over. And when we were told, this is when I say we, I mean me and my local friends, when we were told that Malaysia was interested in the debris, wanted to investigate it, these two particular pieces, and that the protocol was in place to hand it in. So I was not in Madagascar at the time. I had my local friend hand it in to the Madagascar BEA on August 16. And on August 24, the honorary consul went to the ministry to finalize some of this agreement so that he could pick up the debris and hand it over. And on August 24 in the evening, he left his business, his place of work, to go to the regular cafe where he always hangs out. And he was followed by two people on a motorcycle. The guy riding on the back hopped off and shot him 3 times dead. He was assassinated. It was a hit. I've seen the CCTV video from the bank nearby. It shows it. It was a professional hit. So 8 days after we handed over debris for him to, for the first time, pick up and deliver, he was assassinated. So that is either related to the debris or it is one in a very, very long growing string of Malaysia 370 coincidences.
Mm. Yeah. Now, Lee Newcomb, 85, has said to us, and we've read this out before, thank you, Blaine and Jeffrey, for answering my question. Yes, a debunking episode would be good for all viewers. So we're going to continue on that theme. Um, so we are going to continue to look at these crazy theories, if you like. And one of the first ones comes from Andrew Crawford, 6369. He says, yes, please, we need a debunking video for wormholes, orbs, and pinching planes. You got any thoughts on that? That's the Ashton Forbes stuff.
Well, I'm not technically very adept, but people who have examined that video very closely, who know about that stuff, have said it is fake and have debunked it. I am kind of astounded at the amount of publicity it's got because it is so ridiculous. But 370 was not abducted by aliens, and it was not abducted by the US government using alien technology in orbs. This
No.
is one of the more far out theories that it is that really isn't a theory. It's a fake video and it is science fiction and it is a fantasy.
Yeah.
The problem is that when you have people watching that and believing it and buying into it, the general public says, oh, well, it was taken. It's all a big conspiracy. We can't find it. And politicians listen to people.
Mm, they do.
Politicians listen to public. So the more of that disinformation that gets out there, the more pressure there is on politicians not to spend public money to look for this plane. That's what the great tragedy of
Mm.
these disinformation and misinformation and wild conspiracy theories are.
Well, here's one about you, Blaine. Stephen Boris, 5288. He says, what I find truly weird is Blaine is the only one finding this stuff. Find that weird? He's the only one? Question mark. Well, I can start to answer that for you, Blaine. Stephen, I can promise you, Blaine Gibson is not the only one. There has been a lot of people finding debris. Blaine's role has been to raise awareness, and people bring the debris to him. Now, I think, Blaine, from memory, you've only found about 7 pieces, your actual self, out of the 49 that have been found. Is that correct?
Yes, out of the 48 that
Okay.
have been found
Yep.
so far, that's 43 plus the five.
Yep.
I only actually found about seven myself,
Yep.
and the other 15, uh, in fact, now it's up to 17, were found by local people in Madagascar and simply collected by me. And
Mm.
why were they found by local people and handed to me? Well, that's because I put the word out. I showed them what to be on the lookout for, and they were. I
Yep.
offered a small financial reward for people who found it, which meant that,
Mm.
like, whenever I'd show up there, the kids would be out on the beach looking as much as they could, and people would
Yep.
look in their backyards and see if they found anything. And then about 15 other pieces were found in 6 different countries by people totally unrelated to me. The first piece was found by Johnny Begg and his cleaning crew in La Réunion. The
Yeah.
most significant piece of all was found by Tanzanian fishermen on Pemba Island.
Yep.
And a third confirmed piece by matching serial numbers was found by two French tourists in Mauritius who wisely chose to remain anonymous because a lot of the finders of debris, after they've seen the lies that have been told about me and about Johnny Begg, who's a very decent guy, just cleans the beaches. After they saw that, they didn't want their names in the papers, didn't
Mm.
want their names in the media. So
Sure.
the claim that I am the only one is a total fabrication. It is a lie that has been spread in order to try to discredit me and to discredit the debris.
And also, of course, discredit the location of the Southern Indian Ocean. And there's been other people who are peddling their conspiracy theories of other locations, and that's why they're trying to discredit you. Now, we're also showing viewers at the moment a spreadsheet that's been compiled by Richard Godfrey with Blaine's help, which details, I think, about 42 or 43 pieces. It hasn't been updated yet. It will be in due course, which detail where they were found, who found them, and where they came from on the aircraft, which leads us, Blaine, into the next conspiracy theory, which is a really irritating one. This came from Radio Gamma 66, who simply says MH370 turned into MH17, all documented. Well, I can promise you that is absolutely, completely rubbish. And it has been confirmed that the serial numbers from the MH3, MH17 wreckage do not match the MH370 serial numbers. That has really been documented by the Netherlands Air Crash Investigation Group, who were looking into the tragic loss of MH17, helped, I might add, by the Australian ATSB, who also were involved in the search for MH370 and were involved in the debris collection. So there is not a chance in the world that those two planes are connected, other than they were both 777s and they were both Malaysian Airlines. So, Blaine, James Richard Johnson says, I have two theories. The plane broke apart in the sky, the plane exploded in the sky. That's why there's a lack of evidence. I think it's not quite That's not quite what he said, but I think that's what he is saying. But Blaine, there's no evidence of an explosion whatsoever, is there? I mean, as in a
There's
bomb. Oh,
absolutely
no.
no evidence of an explosion. And the evidence, in fact, points against an explosion. And the evidence also points against the plane breaking up in the sky.
Hmm.
So those are theories that when originally the plane disappeared, sure, those were legitimate things to look at.
Yeah.
But the fact is that the radar evidence, the Inmarsat evidence, the whisper evidence, and especially the debris, number one, the debris, the only physical evidence there is,
Hmm.
shows that it wasn't shot down. There is no shrapnel
Hmm.
in any of the debris on Malaysia 370 as there was on Malaysia 17 or any
Hmm.
plane that was shot down.
Hmm.
And if 370 had broken up in the sky, the pieces would be bigger
Yep.
than they are.
Yep.
And so, and the Inmarsat data would be different, or the radar would be different than it is.
Hmm.
So those two theories, while they're not ones that are hurtful like the one I described before, they're simply theories that were interesting on the first few days, but have simply been disproven by the evidence.
So Aperitifs says, is there a possibility it was shot down and due to embarrassment covered up?
No, there is no evidence that it was shot down, and there is no evidence that it was covered up in terms of the debris and the Inmarsat data and the radar. The cover up that exists is simply trying to block the underwater search
Hmm.
and forget about Malaysia 370 forever. That,
Hmm.
for whatever reason, that's the cover up. But no, it was not shot down in the South China Sea. We absolutely know that because we have the radar evidence turning back to the Straits of Malacca. We have the co-pilot cell phone ping. We have the Inmarsat data. We have the whisper data. And most important, we have the debris in the southwestern Indian Ocean that could only come from the southeastern Indian Ocean. So it was definitely not shot down in the South China Sea or Gulf of Thailand. And there was also a theory out there that it was flying too close to Diego Garcia and was shot down. Well, if that were true, there would be shrapnel on the debris, and there isn't. If it had crashed around there or been shot down around there, it doesn't fit the oceanography. Debris would have been in the Chagos Archipelago. Debris would have arrived earlier than it did in the Mascarenes and Madagascar. I at first was open to that possibility in connection with the Maldives sighting, but the Maldives plane was not Malaysia 370. The witnesses did not see it crash, and the oceanography and debris itself demonstrate that 370 was not shot down anywhere near Diego Garcia.
And also, segueing back to that South China Sea, one of the things that's not appreciated on that theory is that at night time, which is what we had, there are literally thousands of fishermen out fishing.
Yes.
And if it had been shot down there, there would have been hundreds of eyewitnesses to see it, and there were none, none whatever. So that that theory, it just doesn't stack up. And of course, the debris would have been all around in the South China Sea, which is where they first searched for quite a few days and found nothing. And then they searched the Andaman Sea, the Straits of Malacca, nothing, nothing. And they didn't start searching in the southern Indian Ocean based on the Inmarsat data for 10 days after
Yes.
MH370 was lost. And that was on the 18th of March. Now, people say, well, why wasn't there a debris trail? Well, because they didn't start searching where we now know it is in the University of Western Australia WSPR area, the two combined. They didn't start searching there till the 28th of March. That's 20 days later. And we've also mentioned before that three cold fronts had moved through that area. So there was no chance of a debris trail, not a chance, because the
Yeah.
debris had all either sunk or had floated away. Any debris trail was just simply broken up into many, many, many trails, which are almost impossible to spot. So, the thing is this, as you'll agree, Blaine, you've got satellite evidence, you've got debris evidence that you and others have found on the basis of Chari Patarachi's work, and then now you've got whisper evidence and of where the location is, which marries up with both of those things. So every skerrick of evidence we've got points to the southeast section of the Indian Ocean, and there's not one shred of evidence for any other location other than where we're currently looking.
Yes, that's very correct. And I would just like to add that at first, when I started my independent investigation, I was open to different theories
Mm,
until debris started showing up. I looked in the South China Sea and Gulf of Thailand and Andaman Sea, and I went to the Maldives, and there
mm,
wasn't any debris there.
mm,
And so I was open early on to different possibilities and different theories. But what's happened is that those have been disproven by all the evidence. It's very clear that Malaysia 370 crashed in the southern Indian Ocean, somewhere near the search area. And those others, which might have been nice theories at the beginning, are now simply fantasies that are
mm.
disproven by the evidence.
Yep, absolutely. So, viewers, that's all we've got time for today. Blaine is going to be back in a few days' time. We're going to discuss some more aspects of this MH370, and you've got some more debris, I believe, Blaine, as well to talk to us about.
Yes, there is some more debris, and I'm starting to get pictures of it and trying to get it into my possession, and then I can get better pictures and should be ready to go with that within a week or 10 days.
Fantastic. So, viewers, thank you for watching. Thank you for liking us. Please subscribe to us, and please tune in again to get more information on MH370. So thank you, Blaine.
Thank you, Jeffrey, and thanks to all viewers.